Hello, ladies, welcome. Today I'm going to be reading from the book, The Conscious Closet, The Revolutionary Guide to Looking Good While Doing Good by Elizabeth Cline. So, have you ever wondered where all the unsold clothing in stores go to? Think about every standalone clothing store in your state. Now think about every shopping mall and other retailer that sells clothing items in your state. Now think about that across the entire country. The production and discard of these items of clothing is having a serious effect on the planet and on our environment. And I'm not going to preach about this issue, but it's definitely something we all need to be aware of, and that is her purpose in writing this book. And I do think this is a really great book to get, not only for gaining the understanding of what our consumption of these items is doing to the environment, but also because she does break down how to purchase very high quality items so that you don't have to replace things as often. So, one of the other things that I want to mention before I get into the book is that there's a documentary called The True Cost that I watched some years ago. So, if you aren't into reading, I would definitely recommend that you look into that documentary and watch it because it's very informative about this issue. Okay, so this book has 29 chapters that are broken down into 6 parts, and I will read those for you. So, part 1 is Goodbye Fast Fashion. Chapter 1 is The Conscious Closet Clean Out. Chapter 2 is Clothing Reuse Plan. Chapter 3 is How to Do Good with Old Clothes. Chapter 4, Clothing is Not Garbage. Chapter 5, Turn Cast-Offs into Cash. Chapter 6, Clothing Swaps Can Save the World. Part 2, The Art of Less. The Stylish, Sustainable Power of Less. Chapter 8, The Fashion Fast. Chapter 9, Upping Your Quality Game. Chapter 10, Buying Better Footwear. Chapter 11, Secrets of a Well-Built Wardrobe. Chapter 12, Buying Less, Buying Better. Part 3, The Art of More. Chapter 13, Keeping Up with Style Consciously. Chapter 14, The Rise of Resale, Not Retail. Chapter 15, Thrift and Vintage Shop Like a Pro. Chapter 16, Rent Your Next Wardrobe. Chapter 17, Yes, You Can Afford a Conscious Closet. Part 4, The Sustainable Fashion Handbook. Chapter 18, Sustainable Fashion Lunatic, or Fabric Lunatic, Chapter 19, Kick Nasty Chemicals Out of Your Closet. Chapter 20, Conscious Superstars and Better Big Brands. Part 5, Make It Last. Chapter 21, Our Clothes Have Got to Last Longer. Chapter 22, Level Up Your Laundry. Chapter 23, Call in the Pros to Fix Your Clothes. Chapter 24, Mending, Patching, and Everyday Repairs. Part 6, The Fashion Revolution. Chapter 25, Welcome to the Fashion Revolution. Chapter 26, Where Are You Wearing? Chapter 27, Living Wages Now. Chapter 28, The Campus Activism Playbook. Chapter 29, Roadmaps for Making Change. Okay, so I'm going to read. Here's a nice little quote. I'm just trying to change the world one sequin at a time. Lady Gaga. And that's the cover page before the introduction. So I will read the first 5 paragraphs of the introduction. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just read those first 5 paragraphs because they give you an idea of what the book is about in the author's own words. So I'll read the introduction here. If you want to change the world, there's no better place to start than with the clothes on your back and the shoes on your feet. I'm not being dramatic. I believe it to my core. A look at the facts. Apparel is a $2.5 trillion business that holds up 3% of the global economy and employs hundreds of millions of people around the world, mostly young women. Clothes are our most personal and universal possession. I bet you're wearing the stuff right now. And yet, the clothing industry is a far cry from the empowering, innovative, and uplifting force it should be. It is instead among the world's largest carbon emitters, water polluters, and users of toxic chemicals. As much as 8% of carbon emissions are caused by fashion. A third of the microplastic pollution junking up our oceans is coming from what we wear. A garbage truck's worth of unwanted fashion is landfilled in the United States every 2 minutes. And in an industry that makes some people so fantastically rich and famous, there are somehow only a handful of garment workers earning a living wage anywhere. More people than ever are aware of clothing's negative social and environmental impacts and want no part of them. No one wants to feel guilty when they get dressed in the morning. We want and expect to feel good in our clothes. As I've learned, building a more conscious closet takes effort. Anything worth doing does. But it isn't hard or unstylish or expensive. It can be easy and beautiful and accessible to anyone, including you. Beyond that, it will help you get off the fast fashion treadmill, regain your shopping sanity, and uncover your personal style, all while saving you money. It can change the world, and it will change your life. Okay, so I'm going to read Part 2, Chapter 7. Let me skip ahead here. And I'm choosing to read this chapter because, one second here. I'm flipping through the pages here. Okay, so in Part 2, The Art of Less, it says, buy less, choose well, make it last. Vivienne Westwood. And I'm choosing to read Chapter 7 because I felt like this was what's at the core of the book, although there are so many helpful tips in this book. And she even has several resources listed at the back of the book where you can just find out it. She has like a dictionary, or it's just so much information in this book. It's really, really helpful. She has lots of notes at the end of the book, and just if you're interested in more, it's just really helpful. So, The Stylish Sustainable Power of Less, Chapter 7. The Art of Less is a philosophy based on the thoughtful, intentional consumption of fewer items of clothing. The art of less isn't anti-fashion. It's anti-clutter, anti-waste, and anti-mindless consumption. Far too much clothing ends up in landfills and incinerators or just sitting in the back of our closets, unloved and collecting dust. Buying less and wearing our clothes more is a simple and sustainable solution. But if less were really all that easy to put into practice, we'd be doing it already. To truly unleash the power of less, we need to cultivate strategies in our everyday lives that help us to consume less and to consume better. We need to know how much less and less of what. The art of less has tremendous personal benefits. It is the secret to building a functioning wardrobe, affording better quality clothes, and staying sane amid a swirl of fashion discounts, deals, and changing trends. Buying less might sound daunting, but it doesn't have to be. We can choose to think of it as wearing what we love more. Most of the chapters in Part 2 are dedicated to the timeless arts of buying well and, from there, dressing well with what you've got. Less is a boon for the planet. It is the single most effective way we can reduce our fashion footprint. The vast majority of the clothing industry's environmental tolls happens while manufacturing new clothes, specifically in the process of turning fiber into fabrics. According to the sustainability consulting firm Qantas, 93% of the carbon emissions and water used in making fashion happens while creating the textiles that become our clothes. That's why I've dedicated several chapters in part 4 to an in-depth look at sustainable, non-toxic fibers and the companies that use them. Just by doing our part to buy carefully, and wear our clothes for longer, we can help make fashion more sustainable. We can reduce the per capita demand for more new clothes and stretch out the water, energy, and chemicals used to make what we wear. Less is so simple, but the impacts are huge. One study by RAP UK found that wearing a garment just 9 months longer reduces that garment's carbon, water, and waste footprints by 20 to 30%. That is the sustainable power of less. Brands also need to do their part to make less clothing. There is a glut of fashion manufactured each season, far in excess of what consumers can buy. It's trashed or burned instead. An estimated 2.2 billion pounds of overstock and unsold clothing are landfilled or incinerated around the world every year, according to a 2018 report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, a UK charity that promotes sustainability. 2 billion pounds of clothes is the equivalent in weight of 5 billion t-shirts, enough leftover stock to dress the adult population of the planet. In 2018, H&M announced that the brand was struck with $4.3 billion worth of unsold goods. And a few months later, luxury brand Burberry was caught destroying $24 million worth of excess clothing and accessories. They later agreed to ban the practice, proving that it's not just fast fashion brands whose production methods have gone off the rails. Incredible progress is being made to make the manufacture of new clothes sustainable, and there are easy ways to keep up with trends that have a much smaller environmental impact. And yet, neither negates the equally urgent need for less. So, I'm really interested to hear what you ladies think about that. If you'd like to leave me a comment below and share. I'm one of those people who I used to be very into fast fashion. In my old house, I was one of those women who converted a bedroom into a closet, and I had probably about 2,000 pieces of clothing and probably about 300 pairs of shoes and a whole bunch of purses and accessories and a whole bunch of other things. I have now pared my wardrobe down to probably about 100 pieces of clothing, and I would like to get even smaller than that, and I think that I now have about 30 pairs of shoes, and that includes boots. And I had always heard that it's easier to get dressed when you have less. And I do find that that is true, that now that I have less to make decisions with, that I do feel like I can get dressed a lot easier. So I would really like to hear from any of you who may be into minimalism now, who possibly in the past you were not, or somebody who, if you disagree, if you're someone who you're still into fast fashion and you just don't think that it's necessary to pare down, I would like to hear from you also. And one of the very good chapters that she has in this book, I'm not going to read it, but it's chapter 11, Secrets of a Well-Built Wardrobe, where she goes into giving lots of details and telling you how to actually build your wardrobe. And I will read just maybe the headings to give you an idea of what that is. So 1, she has identify your colors. 2 is settle on your cuts and silhouettes. 3, say no more than yes. 4, hone your personal style. So I really do think that this is just a really awesome book, and she even has tips on how to find a good cobbler. She has tips on how to buy quality footwear, and even tips on how to repair things, how to have things repaired. She talks about the chemicals that are in clothing and how a lot of times we don't even realize the chemicals in our clothing. We're breathing that in also, which can be making us sick. So it's just a really, really good book. I love this book. It's something that I'm probably just going to keep on hand forever just so that I can refer to it when I have a thought about something to do with clothing. And yeah, it's just a really good book. I definitely recommend it. And I hope that you will look into some of the things that I said in this video and some of the things that she's discussing in this book, because I believe that we all are responsible for doing our part for this planet. Particularly if you are a parent or a grandparent, we need to be mindful of what we are leaving for our grandchildren and our great grandchildren to deal with if we don't do our part in cleaning this mess up. So I didn't want this video to be too long, but again, the book is The Conscious Closet, The Revolutionary Guide to Looking Good While Doing Good, and it's by Elizabeth L. Cline. And the book is a little over 300 pages, so it's not terribly long. And like I said, she has tons of resources in the back of the book. She has some interviews where she does some Q&A with a few people, so that's also helpful. And like I said, it's just a really, really good book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that she did this book because it's really helped me a lot. So I hope you enjoyed this view. Thank you.